live. So, okay, the recording has just started, and I'd like to welcome you to this session. Most of the people online, well, all of them actually, are our team members from our online management group. And I'm going to start off with something that I call CAST. And of course, as trainers, we are supposed to make acronyms for stuff, which is always fun. But I want to start off with the first page that I sent you called CAST. And Michelle, one thing that's really important with this particular software, excuse me, oh my goodness, is I can just share my screen so you see exactly what's on my screen, or I can share just a portion of what's on the screen, which I prefer because then I can find files in the background. And today, because of the personality assessment, I'm actually going to be drawing on the whiteboard for the first time. So that's going to be, well, I've tested it before, but not in a live meeting. So Michelle, you should see on my screen the 4 major skills of a service advisor.
Yes.
Okay, so I didn't write this as CAST initially, but I was going through this one day and I thought, what can I make it as an acronym? Which is kind of neat because as service advisors, I can refer back to CAST and we could, exactly what that is. And then we're going to do the personality assessment as well. And of course, last time we talked about AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action, and we talked about the benefits of factory recommended services. And one more thing that doesn't come to mind right now. But it occurred to me one time, quite some time ago, that there are 4 major skills that you need to be a great service advisor, an effective service advisor, whatever terminology you want to use. And then I changed the order of a little bit to use the word CAST. And on there, I put CAST, it's showtime, folks. And as a trainer, when you teach the same thing again and again and again, you can become like a robot. And I certainly try not to do that. I've been to many conventions over the years where there's keynote speakers. And one guy in particular who was brilliant, but he almost went into autopilot. Like you can tell he has said the same thing over and over and over again. And I get what that's like. I've had where I taught a workshop on government grants and subsidies, and I taught it in 153 cities across the country. And if the group was really good and interactive, I was into it. But if they weren't, I felt myself going into this mode of just autopilot. And you have to work hard, just like you do every single day, where you have told people the same thing again and again and again. And my wife was traveling with me a lot when we first started. And she said to me, how can you tell the same joke again and again and again, day after day after day? And I said, because I'm telling it to new people. I travel, I tell a joke, I go to the next city. So I'm cognizant of the fact that these people are hearing it for the same time. So the same thing with you, you need to be aware of that, even though you've been asked the same question many times, you've explained the same service many times, you can get into kind of a robotic mode. So I just want to encourage you to be conscientious of that. But most of this training I did, almost all of it, about 98%, was in hotels. And I'd be in a hotel, and I'd take the elevator down to the floor the meeting room's on, and there's almost always a mirror on an elevator, and there's a reason for that. And I would look in the mirror just before the elevator door would open, and I'd look in the mirror and say, it's showtime, folks. And it's the same thing with you. I'm not saying it's a show that you're an actor per se, but part of it is an act. And I think every day when you walk into the shop, it's showtime. I know we've all experienced where you go into a business, you're a customer, and the person has obviously had a bad day, and it shows. And I've learned, being a trainer, that people don't want to hear about the late flight, they don't want to hear about the lost luggage, they don't want to hear the hotel didn't have a reservation or whatever it was. And so to me, that was showtime. I'm walking into this room and it's showtime. It doesn't matter what went wrong. I'm walking in there. So I just kind of thought, well, it's cast. So like you're a cast in a play. And so I came up with this, it's showtime, folks thing. But again, I would look right in the mirror and say it's showtime. Now, one of the things that I mentioned today to the GemCar service, the support people, they sit at computers all day long, and almost every single phone call is somebody who has a problem with software. Now, oftentimes it is operator error. It's not something with the software. And that's frustrating when somebody is yelling, because they get a lot of people yelling, something's wrong with your software, blah, 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 and they explain. what's wrong. Now, they record every one of their phone calls, and I listen to some of those calls before I start the training. And my experience is they're saying the right things a lot of times, but the voice tone is incorrect. It's kind of like when you say something to your spouse, maybe, or partner, and you say something, and what you said was good, but the voice tone wasn't good to go along with it. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I was in Seattle, and I went up, and I'm not going to mention the airline because every airline will provide really good service depending on who you get, and bad service. They all lose some luggage. They all have late flights. So you just get used to that kind of thing. So I want to buy a ticket for that day. I can't remember what happened, but I had to get a ticket last minute that day. And I walk up to the counter. It's quiet, middle of the afternoon, and this lady is on her phone texting. And I interrupted. Who am I to interrupt her, like trying to spend money when she's on her phone? So I walk up to the counter, and she looks up at me. She said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Actually, I need to buy a ticket." She said, "Well, if you buy it online, it's cheaper because if you use me, then you have to pay, I think it's $20 or something." I thought, okay, so you definitely want me to go online. So I used my phone. I went to the side. I used my phone. And because the flight was in so many hours of when I was leaving that I needed to leave, then I could not buy the ticket online. So I went back up and interrupted her texting again, like, oh my God, was I rude? And I walked up and I said, "Hi, I'm just wanting to tell you that I tried to book it online, but I can't because," and she rolls her eyes at me. And so she's getting my ticket. And I said, "So you're not having a very good day?" And she said, "What do you mean I'm not having a good day?" I said, "Well, you're just, obviously not having a really good day." She said, "Why would you say that?" I said, "Because you're rude." And she said, "You think I'm rude?" I said, "Oh, no, 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 I don't think you're rude. I know that you're rude." And I said, "You know what? I used to have a job too that I hated a long time ago, and I hated it. So I quit, and I was a lot happier." And she looked at me and she said, "I don't hate my job. I love my job." I said, "Then you need to tell your face because your face is completely unaware. You're saying things with the wrong voice tone and your facial expressions." And what some companies have done because of that is they have mirrors set up for two purposes. One is for the customer. Now, most of us know, at least on this call, Canadian Tire in Canada. They're a monster company. I don't know now, but they used to have 12% market share across the country. And a lot of their stores, not all of them now, but they used to have mirrors behind the service advisor counter. And the reason for that is because that's why they put mirrors in bird cages. They're not putting mirrors in bird cages so they can see how good they look or put their makeup on or get their hair ready. The mirror is there to get them to be quiet. And if a bird is noisy and you put a mirror, it sees itself and it becomes quiet. That's the reason there's mirrors in their cages. And psychologically, it works with humans as well. And what they found is if a customer is upset about something, and what they would do at Canadian Tire, they were trained to do this. You're standing there in front of the customer, and if the customer gets irate or they're yelling or screaming or swearing or whatever, they would step just a little bit to the side. The customer would see themselves in the mirror, not always, but in most cases, they'd calm down because now they're looking at their body language and their facial expressions, etc. Well, one shop I was at, what he decided to do is put a mirror. Now, these are the days where the phone was always attached to a cord, and they put a mirror there. So whenever you answer the phone, you're always looking at yourself in the mirror. And he found it worked really well because, they say you can hear a smile over the phone. So I suggested to the support people, because I've listened to a lot of calls and you can tell they're not having a good day. They're frustrated from the last person who yelled at them or complained about the software or whatever. And I said, I'm going to recommend that you have a mirror right beside your computer. And I believe that if you are looking in the mirror while you're on the phone, I think you're going to not be, and I tried to be polite about it, but after listening to some of the calls, I found them quite rude. One of the things I do in our advanced service advisor class, and I'm hoping we'll do it at some point for the group, probably in the Ontario area, but we do a 3-day version and a 5-day version. And one of the things that I would do, I may have mentioned this to you last time, actually. I would go into the classroom day one and I'd say, okay, well, first thing we're going to look at is telephone skills, and we're going to phone everybody's shop. We're going to record the call so you can send it to the person. We'll send it to the people who we called so they can hear themselves. And that's why so many companies today, when you call them, big companies say this call may be recorded for training purposes. Well, if it's a bad call and they hear it, then they'll let the person who made the call or was on the call hear it. And so we would phone. And so, Michelle, let's say you're at the class and you would phone somebody else's shop. You're not going to phone your own. And so Lisa phones your shop and you phone Lisa's shop, and Tony phones somebody else's shop. And we listen to the calls on speakerphone in the class, and they're being recorded. And sometimes it's hard not to laugh. And I have hundreds of these calls recorded on my phone, or on my computer, I should say. And so, but invariably people would say, yeah, but Kelly, you're calling on the wrong day. And I know what they mean, but I'd ask anyway, what do you mean? Well, we're here. Like, I'm here. I'm the service advisor. You phoned my shop, but you got the owner. You got the bookkeeper. You got a technician. You got an administrative person. You got, whoever. So no. See, people are calling your shop. And just because you're not there for 3 days or 5 days doesn't mean things should change. And so people are not going to answer and say, look, I don't know how to be nice to you. Michelle does. She's not here. And so don't expect good service this week. Or maybe have a sign at the counter that says, don't expect good service this week because the people who know how to treat you correctly are not here. Everybody needs to be trained to answer the phone correctly. And we believe that the step process should be beside the phone. And I will be doing one of these sessions in the near future on telephone skills. And excuse me. And so I say, okay, so you think we're calling on the wrong day because you're here. Well, I'll tell you what we did is we phoned every one of you. We recorded all of those phone calls, and now we're going to listen to them. And it is the most painful thing I've ever seen in training. And I used to say, okay, Michelle, this is your call. Derek, this is your call. Lisa. And I thought, no, I'm going to make it even more painful. I said, let's listen to our first call. This is the first topic of the day. And I don't know all the 12 people in the room. Sometimes I know some of them, and some of them I've never met. But I never have to wonder who it is. Literally 100% of the time, I play it, you hear it ring, and you have everybody staring. And then whoever answers the phone and hears themselves, their head automatically goes down every single time. So, oh, that was your call. That was your call. And they go, oh, I remember that call. I was really busy that day or whatever. So it's a painful thing to actually hear yourself on the phone. And my experience is it's not so much about what you say, but voice tone and how you say it. So I don't know if the phone calls are recorded at your shop. Just to let you know, I do have somebody that is going to be phoning your shop sometime in the near future, a little bit of a heads up, and that call will be sent to you. But it's a good thing because sometimes we don't know the voice tone that we have. Now, when it comes to great service advising, I believe that you need 4 skills. And I'm going to explain the 4 first, and I'm going to ask you to rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 sucks, and 10 is walking on water. The first is customer service. And some people are good at customer service. Some people don't like customer service. Some people are rude. Recently, Gemcar, there was a shop owner that I know who had bad software, wanted better software. And so my buddy, client, counterpart, whatever you want to call him, colleague, Mike Kelly in BC, went to the shop, did a demo, and the guy loved it. And he loved Mike. I don't know anybody who doesn't like Mike. Mike is just an amazing person. He's one of those people that you meet and instantly like. You feel comfortable with him. He's warm. He's friendly. He's got the British accent, which really helps that as well. It's like that in the Australian accent. I love both. So the guy wants to get set up. So he calls support at Gemcar, and the guy said, well, okay, what kind of computer do you have? I've listened to the call because it was recorded. What kind of computer do you have? And he told him, he said, how much RAM? And he, wow, that's no good. How long have you had that computer? He said, well, actually, we just bought it a year ago. Well, somebody ripped you off because, and I thought, oh my God, this is brutal. The guy calls Mike Kelly back and says, you know what? I'm done. I am not buying your software. If that's the way support people are. So he got somebody who was really good at customer service, Mike Kelly. And then the next person was in the technical skills area of this and kind of blew it. But even a technician in many ways is still a salesperson for your shop. How they respond, what their body language is very important. I've been in shops talking to the advisor, up walks a technician who usually doesn't want to be at the front. They want to be in the back doing what they do. A lot of them love cars and hate people. Have you ever met a tech who loves cars and has no patience with people? Some people have tons of patience with tools and equipment and cars and no patience with people. I'm the opposite. I love people. I love being around people, and I'm good at that part. But if I was a technician, I would definitely be one of your world's worst technicians. I was bugging Michelle on a call a little while ago because they hired an apprentice finally, and the battery in my car went dead. And it was kind of funny because I went out and bought one, and I'm putting it in, and my roommate pulls up in his car beside me, goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm changing the battery in my car." He said, "You know how to do that?" I said, "It's pretty simple, but if you've never done it, yeah, maybe you don't know." He said, "Don't expect me to help you because I don't know anything about it." So I said to Michelle, tell you what, I can now be Tony's apprentice because I actually changed my own battery, so I'm in. Although I got to be honest, and I'm a candid person, my first car was a 1972 Datsun 1200, and I decided to do my own oil change one day. And I didn't know when I was draining it that oil's red, and I thought, why would it be red? That's just too weird. And sure enough, I drained the transmission fluid and didn't really know what I was doing. Now, having said that, I was 14 or 15 years old and didn't really know it. And then, by the way, I heard that it's a really good idea. And by the way, in the US, they typically don't know what an engine shampoo is. And the next time we're going to talk about 4 levels of inspection. And on our comprehensive inspection, it actually mentions an engine shampoo. And a lot of Americans have said, "What the heck is an engine shampoo?" I said, "Oh, we do a really good job. We've got shampoo and conditioner, and we do a little facial." It's a Canadian terminology for whatever reason. But I heard it's good for the car. So I did it, but it was in the winter, and my car didn't start afterwards. So my point is I don't have the technical skills. It's not what I do. So if I was a technician working for you, that would be my weakness. And sorry, that would be my weakness. And I'd be the kind of technician that would be swearing and throwing tools and those kinds of things. So we cannot be an expert in all 4 areas. So the first one is customer service. Not everybody's good at it. Not everybody likes it. And I don't know about your experience, but I find I'm just going to have to mute you, Michelle, unless
Okay.
I don't know what that noise was. But again, you know what? I'll keep you unmuted because the last call I was on, they couldn't hear me and didn't tell me. I think the guy didn't realize he was muted, and maybe he was telling me everybody else was muted. I had a monitor on there like I usually have. So back to customer service. Some people are really, really good at customer service, and some people aren't. Some people love things and they don't love people. I've got a friend of mine who's a brilliant computer guy who doesn't like people, can't stand people, has the face, like I mentioned with the lady at the airline in Seattle. I wanted to say to him, you need to tell your face that you love this job because it shows. You ever see somebody and you can tell they haven't smiled in years? They think their face is going to crack, is what people say. And people, not just me, would bug him and say, "Peter, you've got a customs face." You know, when you walk up to the customs office. I worked in the U.S. for 15 years and very much was familiar with going through customs and immigration. Some were friendly, most weren't. There's actually a sign there that says, "We will always welcome you to the United States." I think once I was actually welcomed to the United States. But you don't complain to those people because they can stop you from going into the country. Anyway, so people would say, "Oh, you've got a customs officer face." And I'm not making this up. He now works for Canada Customs and he gets to use his face every day. He was also a collector for Revenue Canada for GST. He did that for a long time. And I thought, what a great job for a miserable person, because you can wake up miserable and go in and be a collector and have a really good day. So not everybody's good at this whole thing on customer service. The question is, do you love people? Do you like to be around people? Do you have patience with people? And I find a lot of times, if you're super technical down in that area, sometimes being good at customer service is difficult. Because if you are a person who knows cars really well, you can diagnose complicated electrical fuel system problems, you know how to read wiring diagrams. I did a 2-day class where I taught the first day on selling diagnostics in really good detail, and the next day was how to do the diagnostics. And I sat in the next day and I was listening to that technical trainer. He put up wiring diagrams and my head's spinning. I mean, I know nothing of that stuff. And Tony, by the way, Michelle, was in that class. The guy's name is Mark that was teaching it. And somebody asked him a question. And he gave this 5-minute answer that made zero sense to me. And I looked at him and said, that's exactly what I would have said. I would have said the exact same thing. I could have answered that question for you. Well, I can read financial statements, but I can't read wiring diagrams. But here's the problem. There's a joke, by the way. What's the difference between an automotive technician and a puppy? Puppies eventually stop whining. And my son, Scott, was a service advisor in Cochrane, where we lived, for about 2.5 years. And I'm not kidding. There were days where he came in home in tears because he got treated so poorly. Now, there was one particular tech who would yell at him and scream at him. He was flat rate, and he'd say, oh, I'm supposed to get 0.2 more on that, and you sold that at 0.8. And day in and day out, he would give Scott a really hard time. I said, you don't need to put up with that. So I'm not saying all technicians have bad attitudes, but I'm sure we've all met some that do. And my experience is people who know something really well, and somebody comes in and doesn't know what they're doing, like draining the transmission fluid, that would be a stupid thing to do. But if you don't know anything about cars and you're 14 years old, you go underneath and you see a drain plug and you drain it. That doesn't make me stupid. It's silly, but it's about ignorance. And one day it just occurred to me that there's a huge difference between ignorance and intelligence. They're not the same thing. There's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. A person comes into your shop and you're talking to them and they have no idea what you're talking about. That doesn't make them stupid. That simply makes them ignorant. I know a fellow who went into a repair shop. He'd moved into Kelowna, BC, which is in the mountains. And he went in, getting some work done. He said, look, I heard that there's really good headlights that you can get so you can have better vision. And the guy said, yeah, but you can also go down to the Lordco parts store and buy them and put them in yourself. And the guy said, so how much would that be? And he thought, as soon as I give him a price, he's going to laugh at me and he's not going to buy it. So he said, he gives the guy a price. I forget what it was. And the guy said, great, when can you go ahead and do it? And he looked at him and thought, are you for real? You really want to do this? And the guy said, he didn't say it that way. I'm sure his face did. Thought, what are you, an idiot? He wanted to almost tell him you can just go to buy these bulbs. They do the job, and the guy calls back and said, oh my God, I love those headlights. I'm driving in the mountain. I just moved here, and there's this fog. And he was misunderstanding. All the customer wanted to do was to see better. And that was a safety thing to him. And just so you know, we're going to be talking in a future session about the 4 currencies in our customers' lives. And I don't mean Visa, MasterCard, cash, debit. We believe there's 4 currencies in our customers' lives, and we'll get that to in another session. I don't want to get sidetracked here. But customer service is not something that everybody's good at, and we need to think like a customer. Of all the slogans I've heard of all time, my favorite, some of you from Canada will remember years ago, Canada Trust, their slogan was thinking like a customer, and I loved it. Not only did they say thinking like a customer, they actually thought like a customer. And that was back in the days where banking hours were horrible. Banks usually opened at 10 and closed at 3. No ATMs, no online banking, no telephone banking. And I remember going to the bank at lunchtime because you would stand in line. And so sometimes it's, can I take my lunch at 11 today? Because I don't want to spend too much time in the line up at the bank. Well, that doesn't really happen anymore very often anyway. So their thinking was thinking like a customer, but they actually did it. Canada Trust was the first bank, as far as I know, that brought telephone banking to our industry. They were the first ones that said people hours, not banking hours, and they were open 8 to 8. Then they decided to open on Saturday, which was unheard of. And for those of you who live in Canada, you see the commercial of the 2 old men sitting on the bank and can't believe that the bank is now open on Sunday as well. So Canada Trust didn't say just thinking like a customer, they actually did it. It's the same thing with you. Each day when you're at your counter or on the phone, you need to think like a customer. A customer wants to, in this case, see better, and he's thinking, oh, you can get it done cheaper someplace else. Now, I know, Michelle, you bugged me about having my Jaguar. And then be curious, by the way, if anybody on this line has ever seen a Jaguar station wagon. I never heard of it. The only car I'd ever loved was the XJ8. I was in Vancouver. I was going to buy an XJ8. I won't get into the details, but it was a private sale. The guy said, no, tomorrow, that'll be the next day. And I said, look, I need to be in Calgary for Father's Day. That's where my kids are, so I'm not buying your car. And a person who's a friend of mine in the industry said, why don't you just buy the X-Wagon? I said, the wagon? The Jag makes a wagon? He said, yeah. And so that's the vehicle I bought. Well, I'm driving from Vancouver into Calgary, which is all through the Rocky Mountains. But I only had one arm. Well, I had two, but the other one was in a sling because I had shoulder replacement surgery. The first thing, and I don't exaggerate, the first thing I did, I bought the car, I drove to Canadian Tire, and I said, I want you to put really good bulbs in here. And I can tell by the look of his face, he's thinking right over there, you can buy them right there. And he said, by the way, they really don't last very long. I said, well, how long would it last? He said, probably only a couple of years. And I said, that's fine. I don't mind buying a bulb every couple of years. I mean, he said, well, they just don't last long. He looked at me like I was stupid. And I said, so you can put those in? He said, yeah. And he was sheepishly giving me a price. And I can tell he's looking behind me because they in Canadian Tire in Canada. Well, there's auto parts. Everything that's ever made in Taiwan, you can buy at Canadian Tire. For those of you who are from the States and don't know what Canadian Tire is, picture a Home Depot without any employees. And you pretty much get yourself a Canadian Tire. My son's friend worked there for a while. And I said, oh, you started at Canadian Tire. Are you the guy at night that takes the prices off everything? Because it seems you go into Canadian Tire and so many things don't have prices on them. Anyway, so back to this. And I just kind of lost my train of thought there. But customer service, it's about thinking like a customer and not making a customer feel bad. Recently, I was in to buy a new laptop. I went into Staples. I went into Best Buy. I went into a second Staples because they had better selection. And I had heard 3 different people explain to me what, and some people on this phone will know what it is. It's quad core processor. And one guy's trying to explain it to me. He's a salesman, but you can tell he's a technical guy. And he's going on and on and on. And I'm standing there listening to him thinking, I feel stupid. And we're going to be doing the personality assessment shortly. And I'm going to encourage you, when a customer walks in your door, is standing at the counter, I want to encourage you to read them and try to determine if they're one of the which 4 personality types they are. And when we go through this shortly and we look at the 4 personality styles, you are instantly going to be able to think of customers that would fall under those 4. So when I would teach this live, I'd say, okay, you've got this type personality. Do you know any customers that are that? Oh yeah, George is like that, Mary's like that, whatever. And so you have to change how you do things depending on the customer that's in front of you. And I don't mean we treat some people better than others. We treat them differently. And to me, a good service advisor is a chameleon that adjusts colors to its environment. We have rabbits a lot where I live. There's lots of rabbits. And in the winter, it's funny because they're white and then they turn brown. It's just the way it works. And as a service advisor, I believe that you need to read the customer. Have you ever had a customer and you tell them a joke and they just stare at you? Like, why are you telling me a joke? I'm here to get my car fixed. And then there's other people say, got a joke for me? Michelle, you and I will do that. You owe me a joke. You need to tell me a joke. You are the kind of person that wants to hear a joke. Other people, what are you wasting my time for telling me a joke? So you need to know which level. You have to be a chameleon and hit people at their level. So back to customer service, thinking like a customer. So I'm looking at this computer and one person's explaining core processing, quad core processing. I'd never heard of it before. And I'm looking at it thinking, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. By the way, I don't know if you've heard of this new technology. I just heard it yesterday, is 10-finger touching on keyboards, or no, it's not keyboards, touch screens. And I had no idea what it was, man. So I went online and watched YouTube videos. One guy, he made no sense to me at all. I'm sure another techie would totally understand him. And then another one I saw, oh, you got a phone, and instead of typing in your password 1, 2, 3, 4, you can actually touch all 4 buttons at the same time, and it unlocks your phone. Touch screen, you touch one thing, but you can't touch more than one at the same time. Well, new technology. So my point is, yesterday, I'm watching YouTube videos, which is a good way to find out, who's a tech and who's a customer. And anyway, back to Staples, and the guy was making me feel stupid. Maybe it was Best Buy. And I thought, oh my God, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. So I ended up going to Staples, and I'm looking, and I knew what I wanted. I wanted SSD drive. I wanted a backlit keyboard. And he said, I said, okay, so what is quad core processing? He said, it's really simple. He said, it's like a 4-lane highway, and you're driving down the highway, and the lane that you're in is really slow, so your computer will automatically get into the next one. I thought, oh, that makes sense. The point was, he said it to me in a way that made sense, and I didn't feel stupid. Now, I think we all know that you have to really, really be careful when you're talking to men, more so than women, because men typically have, not always, but have an ego. And so I'm going to encourage you, when you're talking to men specifically, that you say to them, as you know, because they haven't got a clue. But when you say, as you know, it strokes the ego a little bit because you assume they knew. Now, I don't know how much it's changed, but when I was writing service in 78, 79, and 80, I would have guys come in and say, yeah, the car's really not running really well. And I'm thinking it's either the fuel filter or the timing. Well, it's actually a flat tire, sir. But so I just got to move so I can plug my computer back in. It's actually a flat tire, but I'm sure one day you'll have this issue with the fuel filter or the timing. The point that I'm making is that sometimes they think they know what's wrong. And I think, sorry, it's a little noisy in my room here. There's a humidifier going. It's kind of funny, too. Where I live, you need a humidifier, and then other places you need a dehumidifier. And so you can still hear me good, Michelle?
Yep.
Okay. So I had moved into a different room, and now I'm back into the other room where I can plug it in. And so my point is that we need to be able to communicate with people without making them feel stupid. And again, there's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. Ignorance is they simply don't know something. Stupidity is you've told them 15 times and got out crayons and Bristol board and started drawing pictures for them. And I've got a friend of mine that every once in a while we'll be talking, and I'll say, do I need to get out crayons and a Bristol board? People don't know something, that means that ignorance is not stupid. And my experience is that if you're really good in customer service, you're going to be able to treat people nicely, even if they're not nice to you. It's easy to be nice to a nice person. It's not easy to be nice to a person who's not nice to you. And I'll tell you how I dealt with this as a service advisor. There were certain customers, you'd see them on the schedule, you know what I'm talking about, and you know they're coming in that day, and you go, oh no, I'm going to have to deal with this person. But what I found interesting is sometimes you can deal with somebody that somebody else can't because of personalities, or what I call Mr. or Mrs. Sandpaper. And sometimes a person will just rub you the wrong way. I remember when I worked at the Texaco, it was a 3-bay repair shop, plus we sold gas. And there was a guy that owned a restaurant close by, and the owner couldn't stand him. One day he was actually getting gas, and he came over and turned the pump off and looked at him and gave him the finger like, no, I'm not selling you gas. And I said, I don't know, I have a problem with it. I don't really have a problem with him. So whenever he'd come in for repair, I would deal with him, but there's some people that he would deal with better than me. So customer service is a lot about reading people, about being patient, about understanding that they're ignorant about something, not necessarily stupid. And again, there's a big difference between ignorance and stupidity. So the question is, and we can run, days of training just on customer service. So I just wanted to introduce it here. How would you rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 as your job every day as a service advisor? Are you patient with people? Do you explain things well? Do you listen well to people? Do you genuinely like people? 1 sucks and 10 is phenomenal. So I'd like you to rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rank in this whole area of customer service? The next is admin, which used to be the third, and I changed it to spell the word cast, but the administrative part. And there are some people who are phenomenal at customer service who totally suck at administration. They are good at talking to customers. Their paperwork is a disaster. They've got stacks of paper. I've been in shops where I look at the desk and think, oh my God, how could you function with that much stacked up paper all over the place? And then you got stacks of paper, and then you forget to order a part because the invoice was hidden below, and customer comes in, where are my keys? Oh yes, the keys. You probably want those. And here we are looking for the keys. So you can be really good at customer service, but not necessarily good at administration. So administration is basically your ability to use the software that you have, your ability to look after paperwork and be organized with ordering parts, etc. And by the way, next week I'm going to be giving you an outline of a service advisor's to-do list. And I've bounced back and forth between to-do list printed and electronic. And by the way, some people know this, but one of the cool things about Windows is that you've got sticky notes. And I don't mean sticky notes. I mean, I was in a shop, well, lots of times, but a person's got their computer monitor and they've got sticky notes all the way around the outside, like no space left on the outside with all these sticky notes. That's not what I'm talking about. It's a sticky note option, and I use them all the time. I can put it on my desktop. For example, it's there. If I want to send people a link for the session, it's always the same. I just go to my sticky note and copy and paste. I use it for my to-do list as well. Because I mean, I just need to remind myself of those kinds of things, and I do use a to-do list every single day. And by the way, one thing I decided a long time ago is I have a different to-do list for the 5 days of the week. And I focus one day on marketing and another day will be on financial. And so I have certain tasks that I like to do certain days of the week so that, oh, it's Tuesday morning, I need to work on whatever. So I'm going to show you the action plan or to-do list. It's a Word document and you can modify it. Some of you I have sent it to already. So it helps with the administrative part. So how would you rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 with the administration? Are you really organized? Is your handwriting decent? And this includes typing skills. I have been, well, I was a computer operator in 1980, and I'll tell you how bad it was. We had teletypes that we would type on with the computers. But so I've been typing since 1980, and I've been doing it wrong since 1980. I have tried Mavis B. I won't tell you what I think of Mavis B. Other than I thought, okay, I'm going to learn how to type better. And I went on and she says, okay, it's online, by the way. I think it's $30 or something. And it improves your typing skills, which I highly recommend. What I don't like as a customer is you go into a business and the person, you see the top of their head because they're pecking away at the keyboard. And then there's people who are looking at you the whole time they're typing on the keyboard and think, wow, I wish I could do that. Well, you can learn. But again, I've been typing on a computer keyboard since 1980. And I went online. I thought, okay, I'm going to get Mavis B. And she says, okay, start typing these words. And within 45 seconds, she said, okay, you are ranked as a beginner. And I yelled at her and thought, I am so not a beginner, lady. But obviously, my typing skills needed to be improved. And so I just signed up for LinkedIn, by the way. LinkedIn has some really good things to help you with administration. They have LinkedIn training. You've seen the one online, Grammarly, which helps with grammar. Some people's typing skills are not great and the spelling's not great and the grammar's not great. And so when you're typing something for the customer to see, it's important that you do it correctly. And I'm hoping mine's going to improve as I get better at typing. And there's another one, Udemy, something like that. And they have all sorts of courses. If you're not good with Excel, then you can take an Excel course. If you want to learn more about, Word documents or whatever, and they have all these. And she says the Udemy it's called. And you can go on Udemy and see all the different types of administrative things. I'm pretty good with spreadsheets, but I'm not an expert. So my next plan after I learn how to type better is to learn Excel better, because there's some things that you can do as a whiz with that. Anyway, how would you rank yourself on administration on a scale of 1 to 10? The third is selling. And selling is a completely different thing. And my experience is a lot of people who are brilliant at customer service are not so great at selling. And they're not so great at selling because they're so good at customer service. We've got Carol. Most of you know Carol. I was hoping she was going to be on the call today, but she's having some serious health issues, as some of you know. And she is brilliant at customer service. I met her in Montreal last year at a session. I instantly liked her. She's just a totally sweet lady. She reminded me a sense of my mom, not that she was old enough to be my mother, but I just loved her right away. And at the end of the class, I said, I just got to give you a hug. And I did. And we liked each other right away. And we have this neat kind of fun relationship. But her selling skills are not so great because she's so good at customer service. If you're focusing on the customer, and I think we looked at it last time, the 2 E's of selling, empathy and ego. Customer service can get in the way of selling because you want to give the person a really good deal. They came in for an oil change and they need something else, and you think, I don't want to tell them that because people complain. I went in for an oil change for $30 and I went out spending 400. Well, if you haven't done work in your car in a long time and it's pent up repairs, then it needs to be done. But I find a lot of people don't want to tell the customer something that they need because they feel bad for them. My son, for example, Scott, brilliant at customer service. I would go to Canadian Tire sometimes, big business, by the way. So it's not like I'm standing at the counter watching him, but I'd be over where the accessories are, and I'd be just watching the counter. His eye contact is brilliant. He's got great body language, and people just believe him, and he's just a nice guy. But one day he phones me, he said, Dad, what do you do when a single mother phones you and says, my engine's got this knocking sound in it? What do you say to them? And he had huge empathy. And honestly, if he could afford it, he probably would have bought her engine for her. And that's a good thing, but then you can go broke in the process. And it's really about making sure there's a balance between the customer and the shop itself. And double E, I don't know if we that last time, but I'll cover it next time. So again, customer service could be something you're really good at, but you're not really good at the selling. Some people are really good at selling, but their paperwork's a disaster. Some people are really good at selling. They can sell things, but they're not very good at the customer service. So how would you rank yourself on a selling skill? Last time we looked at selling skills. We looked at selling more maintenance. We talked about, again, the 7 or 8 benefits of factory recommended service: attention, interest, desire, action. We took them through the 5 W's. What's wrong with your car? Why? What needs to be done? Why does it need to be done? What could happen if it's not done? What it can cost? And we can take care of that for you today. So we looked at some selling skills last time. And some of you are better at selling than you are at customer service or admin, whatever it is. And so I'd like you to rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 with selling. How comfortable are you at selling? I find a lot of people are order takers. The customer gets what the customer wants, which is not necessarily what the customer needs. How often does a person come into your shop? They need something they don't want, or they want something they don't need. And it's your job to explain that to the customer. It doesn't happen so much anymore with the tune-up, but a lot of people would come in and request the tune-up. Any issues with the car? No, just need a tune-up. And if you asked 50 people in a room who are all in the automotive industry to define what a tune-up is, you would get a lot of different answers. And so we don't usually use that word anymore. Some people still do. I remember my mother one time, she said, I can't believe it. She said that we had a flat tire. We just had a tune-up on that car. And then something else went wrong. She said, I can't believe it. We just had a tune-up on that car. I said, Mom, what is your definition of a tune-up? She said, I really don't know. I know one time a fellow was a service advisor talking to a customer on the phone, and the lady calls and she said, how much is a tune-up? And he gave her a price, which I think is incorrect. And she said, oh my God, I can't believe it's that much. She's talking to her husband. You know how one spouse calls and they're talking to the other spouse. Why don't you just let me talk to them? And she said, they want that much for a tune-up. He said, I can't believe they want that much for just tightening up some loose bolts. His comprehension of a tune-up was tightening up loose bolts. So again, we can't assume that people know what things are. And by the way, selling, I've had people say, I've sold a whole bunch of oxygen centers. I don't even know what one is. So you can sell something that you really don't know a lot about. And some of you already have a copy of what I call the Service Advisor Theory of Automotive Repair. And it takes you, I think it's a 60-page document, and it takes you through systems of an automobile. It explains what it is. It explains the maintenance of it. And so it's really helpful if you don't know a lot about cars to learn some of those things, because you could probably get better at selling, O2 sensors or whatever, if you know a bit about what you're doing. Again, you can sell things without knowing, no? And the last part of this, again, selling on a scale of 1 to 10, and technical skills. Where would you say you are with the technical skills? On a scale of 1 to 10, do you know a lot about cars, or do you know a little bit? I think everybody should at least know some. I think, not always, but in some cases, it gets in the way. If you're super technical and people ask you a question and you respond with this super technical answer, like the guy trying to explain quad core to me, I felt stupid. You always want to make sure you don't make people feel stupid. But one of the other problems is it gets in the way of selling sometimes, because you're a tech, you know lots about cars. Customer comes in, starts telling you what the car's doing, and your brain goes into diagnostic mode. I think I know what that is. And sometimes you tell the customer what you think it is. If you tell the customer what you think it is and you're right, you're screwed. And if you're wrong, you're screwed. So it's best if you're a technical person to say, you know what? It could be one of many things, and we need to have our technicians diagnose it. And if in your brain you think you know what it is, great, but do not tell the customer. If you say, I think this is what it is, but the technician has to look at it, the tech diagnoses it, which we're going to charge for, and now we're charging them for something that we knew before we did anything. If you're wrong, they go, but you thought it was this. So I'm going to recommend, even if you believe you know what it is, don't say that. If you're right, you're screwed. If you're wrong, you're screwed. Your best bet is to say, you know what? It could be one of many things, and our technician will diagnose that correctly. It's going to cost X number of dollars. So how would you rank yourself on the technical skills? Now, because there's 5, if you are the mathematician type, the administrative type, what you can do is add up your score on the bottom and double that and see how you score 100% out of 100% in all the skills. Which of these is your strongest? Which is your second? Which is your third? And which is your fourth? And what I'm going to be asking you to do is in the chat section, if you could just quickly type in what yours are. I don't need to know the score. That's not what I mean. But if you could just type in customer service, admin. Some people, it's exactly in that order. And I just like to get some input. Not everybody has to do it, but if some people could just chat me and say, what is your number one? You don't need to tell the score, like I said. Just say, number one is this, number two. You don't even have to put number one, number two. Just indicate what they are. Michelle, your mic's open. Which of these is your strongest?
I'd say selling.
Which is really interesting because your background is bookkeeping, right?
Yep.
So some people are numbers people and not people people. So selling, what would you say your second is?
Second is admin.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me much. Third?
And then customers. I kind of had, I have customer service and admin tied, same number. And then fourth is technical.
Now, that's not a bad thing. I mean, sometimes if technical is your number one skill, it can get away in all the others. It's like technicians, by the way. You can have a technician who's brilliant at diagnostics, but they got tools all over the place and they don't wipe stuff off. And then you've got total anal retentive people put everything back exactly where it was. And you've got some people that are slobs and some people that aren't. I don't know why I'm not seeing the chat function here. Let's go there. So Jeff, who works with Phil, customer service is number one. What's your number two, Phil? You don't have to type in all these, everybody, but I'd like to get a bit of input. I like to do this in a live class because then you get people who go, oh my God, you're good at admin. I suck at admin. My paperwork's a disaster. Again, you cannot be an expert in all 4 areas. So Jeff says admin number 2, and you used to work in a printing company, so you're really good at those kinds of administrative things. And you know, printing, I mean, I can't even imagine having to prove everything and you print off 10,000 of something and there's a typo or whatever. Number 3, Jeff? Selling, and obviously technical is last. Derek, I'd really like to see yours, sir. Now, you know what I can do is I'm going to unmute you, Derek. Okay. What's your number 1, Derek? Oh, sorry, that's Derek, you're unmuted. Do you have a mic? Maybe you don't have a mic there. You can just do it in the chat.
Sorry, I wasn't here.
Okay. That's
I
okay.
had to step away from my computer.
Yeah, I understand that. So, okay, I'm just going to move on to the personality assessment. But again, with these 4 skills, what is your number 1? What is your number 2, 3, and 4? And I do understand during the day you get called away, and it's just the reality of it. Somebody who talked to you this morning doesn't want to talk to somebody else, and that can cause problems as well. And so I'm just going to go back and mute. Okay. So now we're going to take a look at the personality types. And there are 4 different personality types, 4 major personality types. And I'm just going to pull out, hopefully you had a chance to print off the handout. If not, you can just watch it on the screen. And I'm going to ask you to fill this in, and I'll show you how it's done. And again, I definitely always want to keep these below an hour and a half. Ideally, I try for an hour, but this doesn't work. Somebody's got a chat here. Okay, so yeah, Derek had to go. I understand. Okay, so and it's recorded anyway, and I send out the recording after the session ends, so you can always go back and listen to it. So the 4 personality styles, and hopefully on your computer, you have, or sorry, you've printed off the 4 personality styles, and I'm just going to pull it up on here. And Michelle, this is where I'm going to need you to let me know that it's actually on the screen. And that is not it. And I'm not sure why it's not opening. Now it is. But it's not the right document. Okay, so if you've got this in front of you, what you're looking at here, excuse me, is 4 columns. There's column A, column B, column C, column D. And all you need to do, and I'm just going to now share that. And again, this is slightly new technology, new share screen. Here's where the admin comes in. There we go. And Michelle, you should be seeing improving customer service and selling by understanding your personality. Is that correct? I can't see what you're seeing. You there, Michelle? Maybe she had to take off. Can somebody else just send me a quick chat, make sure that's what you're seeing? Personality characteristics chart?
Yeah, I can see it, Kelly.
Great, thank you. Okay, so here's what you're going to do. We're going to do this quite quickly, and you should do it quickly because the experts tell us if you spend too much time thinking about it, you're going to think about what you want to be rather than what you are. And this doesn't mean 100% of the time. It's simply saying with you most of the time. So on the bottom, we see column A, B, C, and D. And so what we're going to do is 1 column at a time. And to be clear, what you're going to do is circle or highlight. Now, if you didn't have the time to print that off, you can just track the numbers for column A and just do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the scratch across it. The first one is cool. Now, we're not talking about like Fonzie Cool from the whatever show that was years ago, All in the Family, or no, that was a different show. Cool is as compared to a warm personality. Some people are really warm, some people are not. That brother-in-law that I told you about, I've always said he's so cold that if he had a waterbed, the thing would freeze. So I'm dating myself with waterbeds. But so are you cool? And if so, then you can circle or highlight that if you printed it off. If not, just track these under column A and then give yourself a 1 for each of these little, the little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing. Are you a reserved person, I should say? Some people are really reserved about things as compared to super open. Some people you think, I've known you a long time and I know nothing about you. And then there's other people you feel like you got to know them really well because they tend to be more vulnerable. Uncommunicative kind of reminds me of teenagers. Yep. Nope. Then you learn to ask open-ended questions like, what'd you do today? Play football? Okay, what was your favorite part of the game? Kicking? Okay, so we're not getting a lot of communication here. Are you uncommunicated? Are you guarded, which is similar to reserved, but you keep things to yourself and you really don't want to take a risk and be vulnerable, so you keep things to yourself. You don't want to give an answer because if it's the wrong answer, then somebody's going to make fun of you, so you say, I don't want to do that. Are you cautious? Are you the kind of person when you're driving and it says 80, you do 80? Are you cautious about most things in your life? Are you disciplined about time? And that just doesn't mean are you on time for things, is do you give yourself enough time to do things? And sometimes we get rushed because we weren't disciplined with our time. So would you say you're a person who's disciplined about time? Are you a person who uses facts? Some people, it's all about the facts. I had a guy years ago who had a technician. He'd say, you know what, I didn't really understand him. until we did this personality assessment. He couldn't just give an answer. He needed to do his homework. And he would go to Mitchell and Demand or All Data or IATN or whatever and get the facts. You know, they say in that big expression in the US, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And so the question is, are you a person who likes to use facts and figures to back up what you have to say? Do you tend to have formal dress and speech? That's not just at work, but in social situations, do you tend to dress up a little bit more and talk a little bit more uppity? Are you a person who has measured opinions and actions? You're not going to share your opinion unless you've really thought it through, and you've got some actions. Some people are just random, and they're, you know, what do they call them? Whatever, you know, like the gypsy thing. I'm trying to think of the word. Free spirit. There's what I'm looking for. Some people are just free spirits, and other people are measured. Are you strict? So if you're a boss, would your employees consider you strict? If you have kids, would they consider you strict? I remember one time when my son said, Scott said to me, Dad, I can tell when your no is a maybe no or a real no. Voice tone. Are you disciplined at seminars? I don't know why they ask this question, but you know, I see people in a class and they're taking notes and asking questions, and there's other people who are not so disciplined with that kind of stuff. Do you have rational decision making? Where I find myself really poor at this is Costco. I go to Costco and I get a little cart and then get the big flatbed thing going on, and I usually spend $400 or $500 in Costco. And then you see people who are buying one item. Like, why would you go to Costco to buy one thing? That makes no sense. Well, those people are probably in this column and are rational, and they don't need to buy everything that's just impulse. Are you a person who seems difficult to get to know? People feel like they can warm up too quickly, or maybe they can't. Are you demanding of yourself and others? Personally, if I was to rewrite this, I would separate that. Sometimes we're demanding of ourselves and not others. Some of us are our own worst enemy, and we're harder on ourselves than anybody else. And lastly is, are you impersonal and businesslike? So all you need to do is, if you've got it printed, add up how many you circled or highlighted or whatever. And if you were just tracking it, the question is, how many points did you score under column A? Column B, and again, this is being recorded, so you have to come back to it after you print it off. That's fine. Column B is, some people I know are going to be really strong on column B. Are you competitive? Do you like to win? Some people are so competitive they don't even want their kids to beat them. They're really just fiercely competitive. A friend of mine was so competitive, he'd say to his kids, let's play 10-0. And whatever the game meant was, I'm going to get 10 and you're going to get nothing. Some people are very competitive. Some people are not. Do you have fast actions? You typically do things very quickly. Are you a risk taker? You just take risks. You go to the grocery store and it says 12 items or less, and you think I've got 22, but they're not that big. Are you aggressive? Not just actually assertive, but would people consider you to be an aggressive person? I don't find myself that aggressive. I'm a nice person until people piss me off. And then, just like that lady in Seattle, I just had to say, you know what? You need to tell your face. That's kind of aggressive. But, you know, instead of yelling at somebody and swearing at them, they think you've got a problem. Think, look at that person, how rude they were. But I'm thinking, she's thinking, he said that I need to tell my face that I like my job. That's something I've not heard about before. Do you have strong opinions about things? I definitely say yes to myself there. Do you have a take charge attitude? It doesn't mean you need to be in control, but are you ever in a situation where something needs to get done and nobody's really getting it done, and you say, get out of the way, let's get this done. We need to get stuff done. You're an achiever. So you take charge not because you need to be in control, but because things aren't happening and you want to get them done. You're a doer. Are you directive? You pretty much know the direction that you're heading in. I posted something on my Facebook yesterday with this 15-second inspirational thing, and I'm going to send it out along with the notes from this. It's a 15-second thing. It's just hysterical. Are you a person who tends to use power? And I've never been on a condo board, but I've heard people get on the condo board and all of a sudden they think they're the president of the United States or the Prime Minister of Canada. Do you take social initiatives? And that simply means like this. My oldest son is a great leader. He has events. For as long as I can remember, he had New Year's Eve at our house. There would be sometimes 20 to 30 people that he would invite. He chose a theme. One year, the theme was Star Wars, and he encouraged people to wear Star Wars stuff. And all night they watched all the Star Wars episodes. And then another time it was Back to the Future, and they did a theme on that. And he is a social guy. He's a real leader. He was putting events together all the time. My other son, oh, no, he didn't want to make phone calls and invite people. If they want to get together, they'll call me. And so Scott would actually call Dustin's friends and say, can you call Dustin? Because he just doesn't really want to call you, but he wants to do whatever. So some people take social initiative. Some people do not. Are you a person who makes statements? I'd like to share my opinion here. Do you have a loud voice? Don't you hate when you're talking to somebody on the phone and you can't hear them? They've got a monotone voice and it's just not loud. Of course, I do have a loud voice, which is helpful for what I do. Do you have a quick pace? When you're walking with somebody and they're trying to catch up to you, can you walk a little faster? They're saying, can you walk a little slower? You do things fast. Do you have a firm handshake? I don't know about you, but I can't stand when I shake somebody's hand and they got the little fish thing going on. And you think, should we try that again or forget it? And I've learned, by the way, it's very much a cultural thing. There's some cultures out there, I won't mention some of them. I'm not talking about race or ethnicity. I should try this sober. I'm talking about culture. And some people that they just don't like the handshake thing, and you go to shake their hand and you just get the four fingers. They feel uncomfortable about that. And lastly, do you have a clear ideas of needs and wants? Needs and wants are not the same thing. That brings me back to Costco. Do I need this? Do I want this? And too often you buy what you want, not just what you need. So you go to the grocery store with 5 things on the list, and the next thing you know, you get a basket, and then the next thing you know, you get a cart. I haven't done that since yesterday. So how many did you score in column B? And Michelle, I'm suspecting that your column B was a much higher score than your column A. Column C. Yeah. Are you undisciplined about time? Not just are you late for stuff, but you find yourself rushing because you thought, oh, that'll take 15 minutes, and realistically it was going to be an hour. Are you impulsive? That comes back to Costco. Do you have an open personality? Some people you meet and instantly like, and you feel like you get to know them. Other people no. And again, warm compared to the first column with cool. Do you have a warm personality and people warm up to you? Are you approachable? Do people think I could just walk up and ask you a question anytime? Or are people afraid to ask you things? Are you communicative? Michelle, you and I have had lots of communication, and you never have to wonder what I'm thinking because I say it. Now, sometimes I don't have a filter, and I say, and I'll get off the phone and think, should I have told Michelle that? And again, Michelle, because your personality the way it is, I will say things to you that I know in the world I would tell somebody else, like some of the jokes that I've told. We won't go there. Are you a person who uses opinions? I like to share my opinion. Do you have informal dress and speech? Do you feel better dressing down or frumpy, as they'd say? Do you have a dramatic opinions and actions? Are you permissive? You don't really want to do something, but you go along with it because you don't want people to make you feel bad. Again, my oldest son, Scott, he's got a stronger personality. Dustin is definitely an introvert. By the way, we did this test with our family. It was really neat. One night we sat at the table and that brother-in-law that doesn't have a personality was there. And actually, by the way, he circled warm, and his wife looked at him and said, absolutely not. But anyway, I did this with my kids and the personality style as well. And I said, Dustin, you're an introvert. He said, I don't want to be an introvert. I said, neither am I, but we are. He said, I don't want to be part of that program. I said, but you are. Long story, he went to a birthday party, and it was just girls. He was on the football team. Well, not at that time. He was younger. But he went to this party. He said, Dad, I'm going to this birthday party, and it's all girls. I'm going to be the only boy there. And I said, well, I think I know why, because you're a jock. So I dropped him off at the party. And I picked him up a couple hours later, and I pick him up, and I'm driving home, and I looked over, and I said, Dustin, it looks like you have a little bit of eyeshadow on and maybe just a little bit of lipstick. He said, they made me dress up like a girl. And I said, you let them do that? He didn't want to say no because he doesn't have that strong of a personality. Do you have fluid attitudes? Do you ever love life and hate life within the same hour? Do you have emotional decision-making? Back to Costco. Are you a person who seems easy to get to know? Do you typically find yourself easygoing with yourself and others? Again, that could be a separate one as well. And lastly, would people consider you to be personal and friendly? And again, when my brother-in-law circled that one, we all looked at him and said, no, you should not circle that one. Go back to your customs collection job. So how many do you have in column C? And the last column, soft-spoken. Are you the kind of person that people say, can you speak up a little bit? Maybe you've got the monotone voice going on. Do you have a slow pace? So you're saying to people, could you walk a little slower in the mall or wherever? Do you have the flat or monotone voice? Are you one of those people who gives the little fishy handshake? You have an indifferent handshake. Are you unclear about what is needed? Again, some people know what's needed and what's wanted. And a lot of your customers are like that. They come in, they're unclear about what they need. Sometimes they think they need something. Usually that tends to be more men that have higher egos, and some women have higher egos too. That's not my point. I'm not trying to be that black and white, but there's some truth in saying that men typically have higher egos. I've had some people say the most fragile thing in the face of the earth is the male ego. And some of your customers, they want something they don't need. They need something they don't want. And asking questions, the next point, is the best way to find out what does the customer really need here. They came in and asked for something specific, but when you ask questions, instead of replacing the alternator, what they really need is diagnostics or an inspection. Are you like Dustin, let other people take social initiative, or are you the one that's organizing the Mother's Day, the Father's Day, the birthday, the Christmas, the Easter? It seems like it's always at your place. Are you a person who tends to avoid the use of power? Would you say you're supportive when somebody's going through a crisis? Are you the kind of person who supports them and maybe sends them a card or a phone call or a nice text or an email? Do you have sorry, Michelle, my brain just went to Tony. Where no, seriously, he's a brilliant technician. And sometimes when you're that good, and he's the best I know, I don't make that up. He is the best technician I know. He's taken more training than anybody that I know. And the problem with that is you tend to have less patience for a person who doesn't think like you. But anyway, so supportive. How's it go along with attitude? Are you cooperative? Some people are just resistant, defiant. Some people are cooperative. Do you have deliberate actions? Are you a risk avoider? Well, it says 15 items and I've got 16, so I can't get in that line. The speed limit says 100. I'm not going to do more than 101. Some people are risk avoiders. Some people are risk takers. And lastly, do you have moderate opinions? So what I need you to do is add up your score for column A, B, C, and D. And if you're like me and Michelle, you're off the chart with some of these numbers, and some numbers are a whole lot higher than the next one. And I find it fascinating to do this with live groups. And you see some people in that second column, circle, 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 circle. And then you've got other people who just, they don't circle anything in that column. Michelle, if you were in one of my classes, I'd say just circle them all under column B there, Michelle. Personality profile. Same with me. I'm the same. Personality profile grid. Now, it's a little bit odd because you'd think it would be A and B, but it's not. So what you do is you take your column A and you subtract your column C, and you're going to have your vertical axis. And then you take your column B minus your column D, and you've got your horizontal axis. So I'm just going to give you about a minute to do that. And the answer could be, Michelle, can you have a negative number? And the answer is absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Any negative numbers there? Let me guess and say vertical, you've got a negative number.
Yes.
I love people. People are awesome. But it takes all kinds. It takes all kinds. If you've got a husband and a wife together who are both dangerous at Costco, that's probably not a good idea. But then you got the person, do we really need that? Well, I think we really do. And you don't buy it and think, I'm glad they were with me. What was I thinking? So here's what you need to do. Take your column A minus C. You have a vertical axis. And of course, if you're watching this on video or recorded, you can pause me and do the scoring. And then your column B minus your column D, and you've got your horizontal axis. So I'm going to blow it up, make it smaller. And what you do is find out where you fit on this chart. Now, let's say, and I mean, can you see my cursor, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay, so I probably won't need to use the whiteboard feature of this software. If you have a positive score vertically, then you're going to score in the top portion of this half. If you've got a negative, which I'm assuming, Michelle, you're quite low on that one. The one thing I don't know for sure, Michelle, if you're more into the right-hand side of the lower right-hand corner or more to the left of it. So if you have a negative number and you're off the chart, then you would score yourself below there. You can actually get way down here. If you've got a negative number horizontally, then you're going to be over to the left. And if you've got a positive number, you're going to be over to the right. But it's not just a matter of putting two dots where you are. Let's say that you've got a -8 and a 2. So what you're going to do is you're going to gray in that whole section, okay? So it's not just a dot here. But what you want to do is, use a pencil or marker or highlight or whatever and see that, okay, so it's not just that I'm a -8 and a 2. You go -8 here and a 2 there and fill in this entire section. And I think it's important that you see how deep you are into each of these quadrants. And then I'm going to show you one last thing here, and then I'm going to bring it right back to the very first thing we looked at with CAST. I didn't do this intentionally years ago, but when I did this, I thought, oh my God, it mirror images the 4 skills that we looked at very nicely. Now, on the top where it says information, if I could get you please to put Tony's name there. I'm partly kidding. But if you could put on the top where it says information, anal, okay? Anal retentive. Now, anal is just simply a short word for analytical, okay? So when a person's considered anal, they want things done, but they also want them done right. So if you're a person who scores in the top half of this, you're the kind of person who tends to be anal retentive. You want things done, but you want them done correctly. On the bottom, where it says feelings, right, Michelle? Right, socializer. Which, by the way, if you type it in a computer, it shows that it's not a real word, but it is. Socializer is on the bottom. So if you score a negative number here, you tend to be much more of a socializer. You love people, like to be around people. If you're over here, and again, the same thing is applicable over here. So if you have a -4 and a -6, then you draw that line and fill in this whole section here. Some people are almost the entire section. Some people are equally over to the right and to the left, or sorry, up and down, sorry, vertically and horizontally. So you can actually be smack dab in the middle of this. So you've got this whole section here filled in. Some people are filling in almost the entire box. Rarely, some people are right smack dab in the middle. Now, honestly, I think if I could change my personality style, I'd probably be smack dab in the middle. The nice thing about being smack dab in the middle is it allows you, or close to it, anywhere in this section here, typically allows you to get along with all the other personality types. But if you're a socializer and you love people and want to have fun, and you've got these anal retentive people up here that all it's about information, it's hard to relate to those people. Now, over to the left, it says requires time. And if you could put the word relator. A relator is a person who relates to people really well, but they typically have a hard time with selling because they love people, but they want to build a relationship. And people over here tend to be, not always, but tend to be somewhat passive aggressive. Passive aggressive means they won't say anything to you because you'd feel bad, but I'm going to tell other people. What I would say about Americans, I worked in the US for 15 years, and I'd say one thing I like about Americans, if they don't like you, they tell you. And if Canadians don't like you, they tell everybody else. At first, it took me a while to get used to that bolder mentality, but honestly, I like it because at least you know where you stand. So it doesn't mean everybody on the left is passive aggressive. Please don't misunderstand that, but sometimes it is. Passive aggressive behavior is you go to a restaurant Let me give you an example of that. My wife, my 2 kids, 3 kids, I should say, we go to, forgot how many kids I had. We went to Pizza Hut. And back in the day, Pizza Hut had 3 pastas on the menu. That's it. My personal favorite food, pasta, but not a Pizza Hut. Now, that's before they changed things. And you remember that they did a commercial where people went to a fancy Italian restaurant and they ordered the Italian food. And after they ate it, what'd you think? Loved it? It came from Pizza Hut. What they were doing is telling us we used to make really bad pizza or pasta, but we make it better now. But in the day, it was bad. So I get, I'm not a pizza guy, so I get a salad. My wife gets the fettuccine alfredo, and my kids get the pizza. So we get the food, and I look over, and I look at the fettuccine alfredo, and I said, wow, it looks weird. It looks like a greenish, grayish kind of color. And she takes a bite and said, oh, my God, this is so gross. And over comes the waitress, and she looks at it. She said, well, how are things? And how was the food after the first few bites? And my wife goes, it's fine. And being the personality style that I am, I said, actually, she thinks it's gross, but she doesn't, she doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to tell you. And she looks at my wife and she said, isn't it though? She said, about half the people who order that send it back. And she said, I'm going to tell you that if you don't like it today, don't order it again because it comes from a package and it'll be just as gross next time as it is this time. And I thought, my kind of waitress. But I said to my wife, what would you have done if I wasn't here and you were with the 3 kids? She said, I wouldn't have said anything. I would have said, it's fine, but I wouldn't have eaten it. And then I would explain to the waitress a second lie. I already ate before I came, which is not true. But I wanted to order food because I didn't want the kids eating and not me. So I'll just take it to go. And she would have taken it to go to throw in the garbage, but not close to the restaurant because what would happen if the waitress saw her throw it in the garbage? She thought it would be rude to say something. Now, I know people in the restaurant industry. The most dangerous customer is that style, not me. Because if there's something wrong, I tell them. Whereas other people will leave, not say a word, and never go back and complain to other people. Say, I went there and that pasta was so gross. I had somebody recently who said to me, I have a technician who's doing this, this, and this. I said, okay, did you tell him? No. So why are you telling me? Because you really should tell him. But passive-aggressive types of behavior, I don't mean extreme passive-aggressive. The problem with being on that side is it makes selling fairly difficult because you feel sheepish, you have a harder time communicating with a person about something that needs to be done. And oh my God, how do I explain to them that it's like $400? Then on the right-hand side where it says decide quickly, if you could put CF, control freak. And people on the right-hand side, now, okay, to be honest, the word is driver, okay? If you look at this personality assessment, the person who put it together, on the right-hand side says driver, okay? On the top, they don't use the word anal, they use the word analytical. And on the bottom, they use feelings, and I like to use socializer. So what are you? Are you a mixture of 2? Probably. In other words, you could be a socializer driver. So if you're more negative down here, but you're still over here, let's say you're over this way, so you're more down than you are to the right. So your predominant personality style would be socializer, but you're also a person who wants to get stuff done. Now, if you're over here more so, you tend to be a bit more of a control freak, but you also socialize and you want to have some fun with people. If you're in the top, and let's say you're way up here, you can be an analytical control freak or driver. Now, the word driver doesn't mean that you have to be a driver, but most people who are control freaks can't stand anybody else driving because they really want to be in control of the car. Up here, by the way, I've done this exercise with thousands of people. Only 10% of the population is in the top left. And that's a person, let's say it's way up here, and they're analytical, but they're also a relator, and they really, really like people. They want people to like them. Those people are typically not great salespeople because they use too much information, and I like people too much to tell them they need to spend more money. They came in for an oil change, and I know we should probably sell them tires, but that's a lot of money, and they probably don't have it anyway. And then, of course, if you're down here, then you would be maybe a relator socializer, or again, if you're deeper down here than over here, a socializer relator. So the question is, where are you at on this chart? Are you more of an information person, analytical? Or are you more of a feelings person? Are you more of a person who requires time? Are you a person who typically decides quickly? Are you on the left-hand side, relator? And on the right-hand side, those people are the opposite of passive aggressive. Now, if the waitress says, how is everything? And you're honest and say it's not great, that to me is not lying, and I don't believe it's rude. They truly, usually, want to know, how is everything? Because if there is a problem, they want to know. My wife and I went into, I don't know if you have Smitty's where you're at, but it's not a great restaurant. And I order French fries, and I get them, and they're not hot. Well, I just don't like fries that are not hot, and I'm paying for them. And we're in this restaurant, and the waitress comes over and has, how is everything? I said, actually, these French fries are not very hot. She said, I'll get you new ones. And so my wife had taken a couple off my plate, of course. And then when the hot ones came, they were super hot. And she said, oh my God, these are so much better. I said, exactly. What would you have done? Eaten cold fries? One last story. I'm at the Ottawa airport. I go to Harvey's, which is my favorite burger, and I order fries. So I get the burger and I start eating the fries, and they're not hot. So I walk back up and I said, hi, excuse me, but these are not hot. And he said, no problem. So I wait. I'm sitting there, little food kiosk kind of thing. And he puts a new order of fries up there. So I go to get them. He said, no, those ones aren't yours. They're another person who we're going to give cold ones to who doesn't care. And then when the hot ones are ready, say, okay, we've got your hot fries. And I thought, is that rude? Now, my wife would say, oh my God, you were so rude. No, I'm paying for something. And so it doesn't make it right or wrong per se. People on the left will lie for somebody typically to not feel bad, right? So if you're more into the feelings part, the relator part, it tends to be a bit tougher. Now, going back to CAST, okay, we looked out, it's not a different thing. CAST is customer service, or administrative. Sorry, I'm just doing this because I changed the order. Selling and technical. So this personalities thing mirror images that perfectly. On the bottom with feelers, socializer, there's no question that would be typically a person who's really good at customer service. If they're on the top of this thing, they're probably far better at the technical part of things. I want to fix cars. I don't have time to deal with these customers who are stupid. Now, it's not that black and white, but you know what I mean. The right-hand side is typically a good salesperson because they like to be in control. It doesn't mean they need to be controlling. Being in control and being controlling are not the same thing. We do like somebody who can take control, but we don't want somebody who controls the whole thing. And over to the left is the relator, which relates a lot to, what's the word I'm looking for? Top, technical, right, selling, bottom, customer service to the left. Those people tend to be really good at the administrative stuff. So if you scored yourself earlier in CAST, and now you take a look at this, there's probably going to be some fairly direct correlation between which quadrant you're in and again, your two personalities, and that's just smack dab in the middle. When I do this live, I actually show pictures of these personality types. I say, for example, who's over to the right-hand side, and I put up a picture of Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't care how people feel, and that's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. He's just a type A personality. In Canada, our former Prime Minister, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, definitely a control freak on the right-hand side. Smack dab in the middle, I put pictures like of Jesus, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, those people who can relate to all four levels. And I'm sure that if you thought about this, you could think of 3 customers. And if it was a live session, I'd get you to do this, but we're almost done here. And you could probably, in the top left, write down a couple of customers that you know and think, oh yeah, they're definitely there. Some people are on the bottom left, some people the top right, some people the bottom right. And so when you're dealing with customers and they walk in, you think, or you look at the schedule and think, okay, this person's coming in, and I know they tend to be a socializer, so let's make it a little bit fun. But if they're the person who's all about business and they're totally serious, and you tell them a joke and they just stare at you like, that's not funny. And then there's other people that want to hear a joke. So you need to be a chameleon to be able to relate to people who are not your style. So if you're a socializer and you know this person's an analytical person, you'll probably pull back on the social aspect of this visit. Then there's other people. You say, by the way, your car needs, oh, forget about the car. Just go ahead and fix it. How's your dog doing? Your dog was sick for a little while. By the way, you went on that trip, and how was that trip? It's all about the social aspect of life, not about the technical parts of the vehicle. Then you've got people who come in, they've got their sheet there, and they've got everything written down, and they want to know, I want to see the old part, and are you sure it needs this? They're all customers. The customer's not necessarily always right. Whoever said that the customer is always right was either drunk or not in the automotive industry. The customer is not always right, but they are still the customer. Now, having said that, there are times where we have to fire a customer. And I don't think as a service advisor, you have the authority to fire somebody, but it's something maybe you need to have a conversation about. And there's some people that are just not worth the hassle. And Michelle, you think about the guy who just sent you those documents, right? Complained to the credit card company. That's not a customer. That's a person who's a pain in the butt. And sometimes the worst thing you can do is to keep a customer who's never going to be happy. By the way, one of the terminologies we suggest is say, obviously, you don't want to say we can't fix your car, we can't make you happy. Don't say those kinds of things. That you would normally be the manager or the owner who says, obviously, we're not able to meet your expectations, and I'm going to suggest you find a shop who will. I have a client who's really bold on the right-hand side, and he actually has business cards for some of his competitors. And if somebody is really rude or he doesn't want to deal with them, he said, you know what? I think this person might be a better shop for you to take your vehicle to. Don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. So, and by the way, I can't resist this. One guy same guy that I'm talking about, he is so on the right-hand side. He's a total control freak. I didn't like him in classes because he was bold and, he was top right, by the way. No social skills at all, socially unacceptable. He knew his stuff, but he was also in control. And I was talking about customer service one day. He said, it's just a bunch of crap, that wussy customer service stuff. They need their car fixed and we're going to fix the car. And I said, really? He said, do you know what the definition of a customer is, Kelly? And I said, okay, what's the definition of a customer? He said, a customer is somebody who's standing in front of you who temporarily has your money in their pocket. I thought, oh my God. Imagine dealing with somebody like that all the time. But some people that are too far down on the bottom who are really good at selling customer service may not be good at the other stuff. You may be super friendly, but you don't understand the automobile. So back to CAST, just to let you know, I'm going to be sending you the document. Some of you already have it, but it is the document that is the technical aspect. It's called Repair Theory for the Service Advisor. I'm going to encourage you to not show the document to your technicians. I've seen it done, and people go, yeah, but that's not really accurate, and this is this, and they're trying to make it all right, and we're trying to make it simple so we can explain it to the customer. Quad core processing is 4 lanes on the highway, and if it's slow, it gets in the other lane. That makes perfect sense to me. So it's not about being totally technical. Now, if it needs that, then maybe you are going to let Tony talk to the customer or whatever, but that's going to be a rare occasion. And so the last time we looked at selling skills, shortly we're going to be taking a look at the next class is going to be on the 4 currencies in our customers' lives, which relates a lot to the whole aspect of customer service. Lastly, just to show you that in the document, it tells you about the 4 behavioral styles. And again, you could be a combination of the 2. So where it lists what an analyzer is and what a driver is. An analyzer is different than a driver, although you could be a combination of the 2. That's often common. An analyzer, their decision style is they require information, but why are you saying that? They want to go on the internet. They want to do a Google search. They want factual data. The driver is similar, but they've already made the decision. They're bottom line orientated. They make quick decisions because they've already done their homework before they even come in. They typically are strong-willed. Relators tend to be things like easygoing. They're calm, controlled emotions, basically, can be semi-boring people. And then there's the socializers that are emotional and warm-hearted and spontaneous, and they want to be part of the group, and we want to have fun. The buying styles is really important. When I said, and I suggest you do this, is to think of some of your customers that you think would fit into the quadrants. Then I've done this in classes, and most people easily can say, I know 3 people who are top left, 3 people who are top right easily, relators and socializers. The difference is the buying styles of these people. If you're selling to an analyzer, their buying style is they require time. They can't make a quick decision. Their brain won't let them make a quick decision. They need factual data. And if I don't understand what this is made out of, and I want to know like the tires and such, and they also use information. The buying style of the driver is they buy quickly. Problem with those people is they tend to be the people who have buyer's remorse and return a lot of stuff. The relator requires time, but they also use their feelings. And if I don't like you, I don't really want to buy anything from you because you made me feel uncomfortable. I can't tell you that you made me feel uncomfortable because that would bother you and that would bother me, but I'll go tell other people that I don't like you. And I'm not saying that's that black and white, but the socializer, we buy quickly, we use our feelings, we go into Costco, we go, yeah, we'll get this and this and this, and you know, talk to all the people giving away the free food. And by the way, I love this. Their expectation from you is enthusiasm. They want you to be enthusiastic. So when you're selling to a socializer, it's going to be a totally different sales approach than if you're selling to somebody who's a driver. Drivers want to make up their own decision. So you say, here's what we suggest. Which of those would you like to do? So you let them make the decision, especially when it comes to money. They want to make sure that they do those. Communication strategies. How do you communicate to somebody who's a different personality style? You read through this. If you're a socializer, what do you do when you're dealing with an analyzer, relator to a driver, or whatever? So it's not just understanding your personality style. I suggest you take this a step further and have everybody on your staff fill this in. And now you know who the analyzers are, the drivers, the relator, socializers, and the combination of those. So that is information that I believe relates back to CAST, dealing better with customer service, getting better at the admin. We are going to be doing a session in the near future on administrative and work order rack flow and better estimating and those kinds of things. So we are going to be doing training on all 4 of those. Customer service, of course, last time we spent an hour and a half or so on selling skills. And again, the next one's going to be on customer service. And then we're going to do some administrative training. But to let you know the technical part, you do not want me teaching you technical stuff. You don't want to drain the red fluid and fill it up with different color fluid. But the sheets that I'm going to send you are the the technical part of it. And some of you already have the document, as I said. If you don't and you haven't printed it off or whatever, I'm going to encourage you to do it. So if it gets a little slow, instead of playing solitaire on the computer, or I know a person went into the shop and they were playing Candy Crush. And I thought, you should be learning a little bit more about whatever these other things are, so you can become profitable. Anyway, so maybe if you got a load time, you think, okay, I'm going to read 3 pages of this. And you're not going to sit down and read all 60 pages, but maybe over a period of time. One of my favorite customers, by the way, who has almost no social skills whatsoever, he will swear at customers if they piss him off. But he's very analytical, and he bought a brand new vehicle. I mean, how many people read the entire owner's manual? And he put it beside his bed and he said, it's simple. I read 10 pages a night until it was completely done. And I thought, that makes perfect sense. But how many people have the discipline to do that? Not everybody is going to do something like that. But I do recommend that at some point you say, okay, I'm going to read 3 pages a day for whatever period of time. So the idea is that if you're lacking in the technical skills, then you can add some of the technical knowledge, which is going to help you mainly with the selling part of that. By the way, Michelle, I was talking to Tony one day, and he was talking how great of a salesperson you are. And I'm not surprised. You just said sales was your best. And your answer was simple. I just tell them what Tony told me. So what you're doing is combining your personality. Not that Tony doesn't have one. That's not what I'm saying. But you're the service advisor. So you're combining your people skills with his technical knowledge, and he gives you the information, and you in turn communicate that to the customer, and then they buy. And again, you could be really good at selling, not good at customer service or the others. So the idea is to become a more well-rounded service advisor so that you can become better. And it doesn't mean that you become an expert in all 4 areas. Nobody is. So with that, we're done. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to be sending this out with the link so you can watch it online. And I'll be sending out document that I mentioned that I'd be sending out. Next Wednesday at 2 o'clock, we are doing the customer service training, and it'll be what we call the 4 currencies of dealing with customers. So with that, thank you very much. If you've got any questions, you can feel free to email me at kelly@kellythecoach.com, kelly@kellythecoach.com. Go back and kick back. Thanks.